Welcome to the Shadows of Belief, where fear meets folklore and mystery dances with myth. In this video, we're diving deep into the chilling legends of death, the terrifying truths behind demons, and the eternal torment of damnation. From ancient tales to modern interpretations, discover how cultures have shaped the afterlife, and how those stories still haunt us today. What's real? What's imagined? And what lies waiting in the dark? Stay close, but not too close. Some myths were never meant to be unearthed. Death and the beyond, cultural myths, afterlife beliefs, psychopomps, and rituals of passage. Death is the great unknown, the inescapable end to human life and a profound mystery that has shaped cultures, mythologies, and religions throughout history. While the physical reality of death is universal, the ways in which societies interpret it, what happens afterward, how to treat the dead, and who guides souls into the next realm, are as varied as human civilization itself. Across the globe, cultural myths have painted rich, symbolic pictures of the afterlife, populated by spirits, gods, and psychopomps, beings who guide souls from this world to the next. Accompanying these beliefs are rituals of passage that honor the dead, ease the journey of the soul, and comfort the living. This essay explores these themes through a cross-cultural lens, examining how different traditions envision death and what lies beyond. Afterlife beliefs, a glimpse into the unknown. Humanity's most persistent question may be, what happens after we die? Nearly every culture has offered an answer, often grounded in spiritual, moral, or cosmological frameworks. 1. Ancient Egypt, the field of reeds and judgment. In ancient Egyptian belief, the afterlife was a mirror of earthly existence, known as the field of reeds, a paradise where the righteous would live eternally. However, this reward was not automatic. The soul had to pass a moral test in the Hall of Ma'at. The deceased's heart was weighed against the feather of truth. If lighter, the soul was deemed pure and permitted entry into paradise. If heavier, it was devoured by the monstrous Ammit. This belief in moral judgment shaped Egyptian society, emphasizing truth and righteousness. The concept of Ka, spiritual essence, and Ba, personality or soul, surviving after death reflected a holistic view of personhood beyond bodily death. 2. Christianity and Islam, heaven, hell, and divine judgment. In Christianity and Islam, the afterlife is divided between heaven and hell, determined by one's faith, deeds, and divine grace. Christians believe in resurrection and eternal life in heaven or damnation in hell, concepts reinforced by vivid imagery in texts like Dante's Inferno. Islam similarly speaks of Jannah, paradise, and Jahannam, hell, with souls judged on the day of judgment based on their adherence to faith and moral conduct. Both traditions emphasize personal accountability and hope for divine mercy, illustrating how beliefs in the afterlife function as ethical frameworks in life. 3. Hinduism and Buddhism, samsara and liberation. In Hindu and Buddhist thought, death is not an end but a transition. Both traditions describe samsara, the cycle of death and rebirth, in which souls are reincarnated based on karma, the cumulative results of one's actions. Liberation from this cycle is the ultimate goal, moksha in Hinduism and nirvana in Buddhism. This perspective emphasizes impermanence and detachment from material life. While many Western traditions offer a linear view of time and death, these Eastern philosophies see life and death as circular and transformative. 4. Indigenous views, ancestral realms and cyclical life. Many indigenous cultures, from the Americas to Australia, believe in an afterlife closely tied to nature and ancestry. For example, in many Native American traditions, death returns the soul to the spirit world, where ancestors dwell and guide the living. Similarly, the Aboriginal Dreamtime is a timeless realm where ancestors continue to influence the land and people. These beliefs highlight an intimate connection between life, death, community, and nature, emphasizing continuity rather than finality. 2. Psychopomps, guides of the dead. Throughout myth and religion, cultures have envisioned supernatural guides to escort souls to the afterlife. These beings, called psychopomps, from Greek, soul guide, serve as essential mediators between the worlds of the living and the dead. 1. Anubis, Egyptian guardian of the dead. Anubis, the jackal-headed god, was one of the earliest psychopomps in recorded history. He oversaw embalming and guided souls through the underworld. Often depicted leading the deceased to the scales of judgment, Anubis symbolizes protection, transition, and the sanctity of funerary rites. His presence reflected the Egyptian focus on proper burial and moral preparation for the afterlife, reinforcing the need for ritual order and purity. 2. Charon, ferryman of the Greek underworld. In Greek mythology, Charon ferried the souls of the dead across the river Styx or Acheron to Hades, the realm of the dead. Payment was required, usually a coin, obol, placed in the mouth of the deceased. Those who could not pay were doomed to wander the shores for eternity. This image of the ferryman underscores the importance of ritual, preparation, and symbolic passage in Greek funeral customs. It also reflects the belief that death is a journey requiring help to cross a boundary. 3. Valkyries and Hel, Norse guides of the fallen. In Norse mythology, slain warriors were chosen by Valkyries, female spirits who carried them to Valhalla, the hall of the slain, where they would prepare for Ragnarok. Others, particularly those who died of sickness or old age, were said to go to Hel, ruled by the goddess of the same name. The Norse psychopomp tradition reflects a valorization of heroic death and the role of divine figures in determining posthumous fate. 4. Shinigami, death spirits in Japanese folklore. Shinigami, literally death gods, are a relatively modern addition to Japanese mythology but have become prominent in literature and popular culture. These beings do not judge but simply escort souls to the afterlife. Unlike Western depictions of grim reapers, Shinigami often reflect a neutral stance on death. Their emergence reflects changing attitudes in Japanese society toward death, less focused on divine judgment and more on the inevitability of death as part of life. 3. Rituals of passage, honoring and aiding the dead. Rituals surrounding death serve multiple purposes, honoring the deceased, comforting the living, and ensuring a smooth transition for the soul. These rites are deeply symbolic and vary widely across cultures. 1. Funerals and burials, sacred departures. The act of burial itself is ancient and nearly universal. From Paleolithic graves with grave goods to modern funerals, the body is rarely discarded without ritual. Ancient Greeks included coins and food for the journey, Egyptians entombed the dead with amulets, texts, and treasures, modern Christians often bury with prayers and blessings. The physical treatment of the body reflects beliefs about the soul. Proper burial ensures peace for the deceased and continuity for the living. 2. Mummification and embalming. Some cultures, such as the Egyptians and certain Andean civilizations, practiced mummification to preserve the body. This was not just about physical preservation but spiritual continuity. In Egypt, a preserved body allowed the Ka and Ba to reunite. 3. Ancestor worship and offerings. In East Asian cultures, particularly in China, ancestor worship is a central tradition. Families maintain altars with offerings of food, incense, and money, often in symbolic form, to honor and sustain ancestors. During festivals like the Qingming Festival or Obon in Japan, families clean graves and commune with the spirits of their forebears. This tradition emphasizes continuity between generations and the belief that the dead remain active in the world of the living. 4. Mourning and communal grief. Public mourning rituals, like the Irish wake or New Orleans jazz funerals, combine grief with celebration. These events affirm community ties and the value of the departed. In Hindu traditions, a 13-day mourning period allows the family to grieve and perform rites to aid the soul's journey. Grief rituals function psychologically and spiritually, helping both the soul and the community move forward. 5. Sky burials and cremation. In Tibetan Buddhism, the practice of sky burial, leaving the body exposed to scavenging birds, is both a practical and symbolic act. It reflects detachment from the body and generosity, as the corpse feeds other life forms. Similarly, Hindu cremation symbolizes purification and the release of the soul. These practices reflect differing views of the body, as sacred, temporary, or both. 4. Death in modern culture, evolving myths and new meanings. Contemporary society is increasingly globalized and secular, yet myths around death continue to evolve. Popular media has reimagined psychopomps in films and games, blending traditional symbols with modern themes. Death is often personified as complex, sometimes sympathetic, suggesting a shift from fear toward acceptance. In modern spirituality, beliefs in near-death experiences, reincarnation, and spirit communication continue to thrive, even outside organized religion. The rise of death positivity movements encourages open dialogue about mortality, challenging taboos, and revitalizing ritual practices. The eternal return of myth. Cultural myths about death reveal as much about the living as they do about the dead. Whether through beliefs in judgment, reincarnation, ancestral realms, or eternal paradise, humans have consistently sought to make sense of death's finality by embedding it in a larger cosmic story. Psychopomps serve as comforting figures, assuring us that we do not journey alone. Rituals provide structure in chaos, a sense of control amid grief, and a way to honor the mystery of passing. Though the specifics vary, the universality of death binds all people. In exploring the myths that surround it, we find not only fear and sorrow, but also meaning, transformation, and hope. Demons, literal beings and metaphorical shadows. Throughout history, across cultures and religions, demons have appeared as ominous figures that haunt dreams, corrupt souls, and test the resolve of humankind. These entities have often been cast as the antithesis of divine forces, symbolizing chaos, temptation, and suffering. Yet beyond their mythic and religious incarnations, demons also inhabit the internal landscapes of the human psyche, as fears, traumas, obsessions, and internal conflicts. These metaphorical demons, though invisible, can be as tormenting as their supernatural counterparts. This essay explores the dual nature of demons, first as literal beings with roots in religious and folkloric traditions, and second as symbolic manifestations of internal human struggles. Through this lens, we understand demons not only as creatures of myth but as enduring metaphors that help us comprehend the darkness within ourselves. Demons as literal beings. Origins and definitions. The word demon originates from the Greek daimon, which did not originally have the sinister connotation it bears today. In ancient Greek belief, a daimon was a spirit or divine power, sometimes benevolent, sometimes malevolent. These spirits often served as intermediaries between gods and mortals, akin to guiding intelligences. Over time, especially through the influence of Christian theology, the word demon took on a more strictly negative meaning, evolving into a symbol of evil and opposition to the divine. The demon became not just a spirit, but a corrupted or fallen entity working actively to deceive, tempt, and destroy. Demons across cultures. 1. Jinn, Islamic tradition. In Islamic cosmology, jinn are spiritual beings created from smokeless fire, distinct from angels, made from light, and humans, made from clay. While some jinn are benevolent or neutral, others are malevolent and akin to demons in Christian tradition. The Quran presents Iblis, often associated with Satan, as a jinn who defied God's command to bow before Adam, thus becoming accursed. Jinn possess free will, much like humans, and can choose paths of righteousness or corruption. However, malevolent jinn are believed to possess, mislead, or harm humans, appearing in tales as shapeshifters, whisperers of evil, or bringers of misfortune. 2. Asuras, Hindu and Buddhist traditions. In early Vedic texts, Asuras were not strictly evil, they were simply powerful deities often in conflict with the devas, gods. Over time, especially in later Hinduism and Buddhism, the Asuras became demonic figures representing pride, envy, and wrath. They are locked in eternal battle with the devas, symbolizing the cosmic struggle between light and darkness, knowledge and ignorance. In Buddhism, Asuras are one of the 6 realms of rebirth, beings driven by jealousy, aggression, and a desire to dominate. Though they have godlike power, they suffer greatly due to their insatiable cravings and constant conflict. 3. Christian and Jewish demons. In Judeo-Christian tradition, demons are often portrayed as fallen angels, once divine beings cast out of heaven for rebelling against God. Chief among them is Lucifer or Satan, who embodies pride and defiance. These fallen entities, now demons, seek to tempt humans into sin and separate them from divine grace. Demonic possession, temptation, and exorcism are key elements of Christian demonology. From medieval grimoires to modern horror films, demons are depicted as invading forces that must be expelled through divine intervention. 4. Succubi and incubi, medieval Europe. The succubus, female, and incubus, male, are demons that seduce humans, often sexually, in their sleep. These entities reflect medieval anxieties about sin, temptation, and sexuality. Victims were believed to be drained of energy or corrupted morally. The succubus myth, in particular, often blamed women or female-appearing entities for leading men astray, revealing underlying misogyny in cultural narratives. 5. Yokai and Oni, Japanese folklore. In Japan, demons take many forms, from the terrifying Oni, horned ogres who punish sinners, to trickster spirits and shape-shifting animals like the kitsune. While not all yokai are demonic, many carry traits of malice, vengeance, or chaos. These beings serve as moral and spiritual lessons, warning people of arrogance, greed, or disrespect. C. Functions of literal demons. Literal demons serve a variety of cultural functions. They embody fear of the unknown, of illness, death, and spiritual ruin. They also enforce moral codes. Stories of demons often caution against pride, greed, lust, or irreverence. Demons externalize human suffering, allowing societies to create rituals of protection, exorcism, and atonement. In many traditions, demons are not irredeemable. Some can be bargained with, transformed, or overcome through spiritual strength. Their presence dramatizes the spiritual battle within and around human lives, giving tangible form to intangible evils. 2. Demons as metaphors for inner struggles. While literal demons populate religious texts and mythologies, metaphorical demons have perhaps an even more pervasive presence in modern thought. When we speak of facing our demons, we rarely refer to supernatural beings. Instead, we describe confronting personal pain, guilt, fear, or addiction. A. Psychological demons. In psychology, demons take the form of trauma, compulsion, neurosis, and repression. Carl Jung referred to the shadow, the unconscious part of the self, made up of denied desires, fears, and impulses. These aspects, when unacknowledged, grow in power, often emerging destructively. In Jungian terms, confronting and integrating the shadow is akin to slaying or befriending one's inner demons. Addiction, for instance, is often described as a personal demon, an invisible force that dominates one's will, feeds on suffering, and isolates the individual from their own values and relationships. Similarly, depression and anxiety may be seen as internal monsters that sap energy, distort perception, and whisper lies. B. Artistic and literary demons. Writers, artists, and musicians often describe their struggles with creativity, despair, or obsession in demonic terms. The act of creation can feel like wrestling with forces beyond control. From Franz Kafka to Sylvia Plath, the metaphor of the demon appears repeatedly, representing both the torment of the artist and the intensity of inspiration. Demons also appear in literature as symbols of moral ambiguity. In Goethe's Faust, Mephistopheles is not just an agent of evil, but a catalyst for self-discovery. Demons in literature challenge characters to confront their weaknesses, often revealing deeper truths. C. Social and cultural demons. Beyond the personal, metaphorical demons also reflect societal issues, racism, war, oppression, and injustice. These are collective shadows, often denied or displaced onto others. Societies demonize certain groups, projecting their own fears and failures outward. This process, while making internal conflict easier to ignore, perpetuates cycles of violence. Modern demons also take shape in technological or existential forms: AI run amok, ecological collapse, alienation in digital culture. These are new expressions of ancient fears: the loss of control, the corruption of nature, the breakdown of meaning. 3. The human response to demons. Whether literal or metaphorical, demons demand a response. They cannot be ignored without consequence. Across cultures and centuries, humans have developed rituals, narratives, and inner practices to confront, banish, or transform them. A. Rituals and exorcism. In religious contexts, exorcism is a way to cleanse the body or space of a demonic presence. The ritual symbolizes spiritual authority, communal healing, and the triumph of good over evil. While dramatic in portrayal, exorcism often involves prayer, sacred objects, and faith in a higher power. In more psychological or metaphorical terms, exorcism takes the form of therapy, confession, or creative expression. Naming the demon, acknowledging one's trauma or addiction, is the first step to healing. As Jung put it, Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. B. Transformation and integration. Not all demons are meant to be destroyed. Some must be integrated. This is especially true in inner work, where rejection of one's darker aspects can create greater suffering. In mythology, too, we find stories where demons are transformed or redeemed, taught compassion, or enlisted to serve good ends. This process mirrors personal growth, facing one's past, accepting imperfection, and finding strength in vulnerability. To integrate a demon is to reclaim power, to see through illusion, and to become whole. C. The power of story. Ultimately, our understanding of demons, both literal and metaphorical, is shaped by stories. Whether religious scriptures, campfire tales, novels, or therapy sessions, stories help us frame and confront the darker aspects of life. They provide models of courage, warnings of danger, and moments of catharsis. In telling our stories, we give form to the formless. We turn fear into image, image into language, and language into understanding. This is the oldest magic humans know. Demons, whether stalking the deserts of ancient texts or the corridors of our own minds, remain potent symbols of suffering, temptation, and transformation. As literal beings, they externalize cosmic and moral conflicts, anchoring spiritual truths in vivid narratives. As metaphors, they help us navigate the murky terrain of the psyche, where fear, guilt, and pain dwell, often unacknowledged. But demons are not merely destroyers. They are challenges. To face one's demons, whether on a spiritual, psychological, or creative level, is to step into a deeper encounter with self and world. It is to seek healing, not by denying darkness, but by walking through it with courage. In the end, perhaps the true power of demons lies not in their ability to harm, but in their invitation to transform. Damnation, eternal punishment, religious hells, and the abyss of despair. Damnation is a concept that lies at the fiery crossroads of theology, philosophy, and existential angst. It conjures images of torment and retribution, of divine judgment and spiritual exile. Most commonly associated with punishment after death, especially within the Abrahamic traditions, damnation transcends religious orthodoxy to find resonances in literature, existential philosophy, and even modern secular life. From the lakes of fire in Christian eschatology to the endless cycles of suffering in Eastern traditions, and the psychological void described by existentialists, damnation remains a potent symbol of ultimate loss and estrangement, from the divine, from meaning, and even from the self. 1. Theological foundations. Damnation in the Abrahamic faiths. Christianity. In Christian doctrine, damnation is typically understood as the eternal punishment of the soul following God's final judgment. Those deemed wicked or unrepentant are consigned to hell, a state or place of separation from God. The New Testament speaks frequently of eternal punishment. Then shall he say also unto them on the left hand, Depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire. Matthew 25 verse 41. Hell, in this tradition, is not merely a physical location but a metaphysical condition. It represents the culmination of a soul's rejection of divine grace. While interpretations differ, Catholicism emphasizes mortal sin and the necessity of repentance through sacraments, while many Protestant sects stress faith alone. Most agree on damnation as irreversible after death. Importantly, damnation is not always tied strictly to moral failure. For example, Augustine argued that all humans are born with original sin and deserving of damnation, though salvation is offered through God's grace. This raises troubling questions about justice, mercy, and divine predestination, questions that have preoccupied theologians for centuries. Islam. In Islam, the concept of Jahannam fulfills a similar role to hell. The Quran describes it as a blazing fire, a place of boiling water and unbearable anguish. Indeed, hell has been lying in wait for the transgressors, a place of return, in which they will remain for ages unending. Quran 78:21-23. Like Christian damnation, Islamic damnation is the result of disbelief, kufr, hypocrisy, nifaq, or persistent sin without repentance. However, Islamic theology introduces a nuance. Some scholars argue that punishment in hell may not be eternal for all sinners. Only disbelievers might remain there forever, while sinful Muslims might eventually be purified and allowed into paradise. This opens up discussions about the nature of divine justice and the possibility of rehabilitation even after death. Judaism. Classical Judaism offers a more ambiguous picture. While the Hebrew Bible speaks of Sheol, a shadowy underworld where the dead dwell, it lacks a fully developed notion of eternal punishment. Rabbinic literature later develops Gehinnom, a place of temporary purgation for the wicked. Most souls, according to these teachings, are not damned forever but undergo a period of purification lasting up to 12 months before ascending to Olam Haba, the world to come. Thus, unlike Christianity and Islam, Judaism often eschews the idea of eternal damnation in favor of moral correction and divine mercy. This reflects a theological priority on Tikkun Olam, the repair of the world, and the eventual reconciliation of all creation with its source. 2. Hells across cultures, Hinduism, Buddhism, and beyond. Hinduism. Hindu cosmology includes multiple Naraka realms, which are temporary hells where souls suffer consequences of their actions, karma. These are not eternal, rather, they function as moral rebalancing zones. Once the karmic debt is paid, the soul reincarnates. The Garuda Purana elaborates on numerous hells with vivid punishments, being boiled in oil, eaten by wild beasts, or frozen in ice, each tailored to specific sins. Importantly, damnation in Hinduism is not framed as absolute alienation from the divine, since Brahman, the ultimate reality, permeates all existence. Even the damned remain part of the cosmic order, and liberation, moksha, remains an eventual possibility for all souls. Buddhism. In Buddhist cosmology, hells, called Naraka, are similarly impermanent states within samsara, the cycle of birth and death. There are hot and cold hells, each reflecting the intensity and nature of negative karma. However, Buddhist hells are devoid of divine judgment. They are automatic consequences of mental and moral states rather than punishments decreed by a higher being. Because Buddhism lacks a creator god, damnation is understood more as a psychological and metaphysical consequence of craving, ignorance, and hatred. The path out of hell lies in ethical conduct, meditation, and wisdom, especially the realization of anatta, no self, and nirvana, liberation. Suffering is not eternal, even the worst conditions are impermanent and subject to change. Ancient and indigenous beliefs. In ancient Mesopotamia, the dead descended to a shadowy underworld ruled by Ereshkigal, regardless of moral behavior. The Greek Hades also contained various regions, Tartarus for the wicked, Elysium for the virtuous. Norse mythology described hell, a cold realm where those who died ingloriously went, in contrast to the heroic afterlife of Valhalla. Many indigenous belief systems do not describe damnation as a fixed or eternal state. Rather, spiritual imbalance or disrespect for nature may lead to illness, misfortune, or ancestral disfavor, but these are often reversible through rituals and communal reconciliation. The afterlife is seen as a continuation of relationship, not severance. 3. Existential damnation, philosophy, literature, and despair. Beyond religious frameworks, damnation has become a metaphor for existential and psychological anguish. The modern age, shaped by secularism, war, and disillusionment, has translated hell into more interior landscapes. Thinkers such as Jean-Paul Sartre, Friedrich Nietzsche, and Fyodor Dostoevsky reframed damnation in existential terms, not as divine punishment but as self-imposed exile from authenticity, truth, or meaning. Sartre, hell is other people. Jean-Paul Sartre famously declared in No Exit that, hell is other people. In this existentialist play, three characters are trapped in a room, hell, with no exit, forced to confront their own lies through the reflection in each other's eyes. For Sartre, damnation is the eternal judgment of the self by others, a claustrophobic mirror where escape is impossible. More broadly, Sartrean damnation is alienation from one's freedom. It is the refusal to take responsibility for one's existence, a condition he called bad faith. In this framework, hell is not a punishment after death, but a mode of living inauthentically. Nietzsche, the eternal return. For Friedrich Nietzsche, the idea of damnation was less about punishment and more about metaphysical repetition. His concept of the eternal return challenges one to imagine living the same life over and over again, every pain, joy, mistake, and triumph, forever. This is not damnation in the religious sense, but an existential test, Can one affirm life so fully that even eternal recurrence is desirable? Failure to affirm life, for Nietzsche, amounts to a form of spiritual damnation, a life lived in resentment, nihilism, or the denial of one's will to power. The Übermensch, or Overman, is one who transcends this damnation by embracing existence without illusion or bitterness. Dostoevsky, The Interior Hell. In The Brothers Karamazov, Dostoevsky explores the moral dimensions of freedom, guilt, and salvation. His character Ivan Karamazov famously rejects a world redeemed by the suffering of innocent children, declaring that he returns the ticket. This refusal to accept divine justice reflects a moral damnation, a torment born not of disbelief but of ethical outrage. Dostoevsky's characters often suffer inner hells, torments of conscience, pride, and despair. For him, damnation is the inability to love, to forgive, or to surrender to grace. It is a prison of the ego, locked from the inside. 4. Modern secular damnation. Today, even in largely secular societies, the language of damnation persists. Addiction, depression, alienation, and shame are often described in terms of hellish experiences. Theologian Paul Tillich called such experiences existential estrangement, separation from one's true being or ground of being. This is a secular form of damnation, one not resolved by rituals or creeds but by courage, authenticity, and the rediscovery of meaning. In literature and film, damnation is portrayed not as fiery torment but as emotional disintegration. In Requiem for a Dream, Breaking Bad, or even Black Mirror, characters descend into personalized hells, drug addiction, moral compromise, digital oblivion. These modern damnations are often self-inflicted, and they resonate with age-old themes: the price of hubris, the consequences of deceit, the slow erosion of the soul. The many faces of the damned. Damnation, in all its religious, cultural, and philosophical diversity, reveals deep human anxieties about justice, identity, and the afterlife. Whether envisioned as an eternal furnace, a karmic realm, or a psychological abyss, damnation represents the ultimate consequence of disconnection, whether from God, from community, or from one's deepest self. Yet the concept is also dynamic. For every tradition that affirms eternal punishment, another suggests hope for redemption. Even in Sartre's claustrophobic hell, there remains a flicker of choice. In Buddhist Naraka, the gates are never locked forever. And in our own lives, we may glimpse damnation not only in tragedy but in the possibility of transformation. If these myths stirred your curiosity, or your fears, remember, legends survive for a reason. Whether warnings, truths, or echoes of something darker, they continue to whisper through time. If you enjoyed this descent into the unknown, like, share, and subscribe for more journeys into the shadowy corners of belief and beyond. Got a myth that haunts you? Drop it in the comments. We're always watching and listening. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and beware the things that lurk just out of sight.